To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Yeah, so apparently Captain America fights himself, and then he says, you know what? That is America's
Huh?
Oh, sorry, it's my phone. You see, I have this app that tells me whenever the wait time for the Mark Twain is below 10 minutes.
Why?
Oh, you know, just because he... Why do I have it? If Disney is known for anything, it's their massive budget, extremely immersive rides. With Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opening up at Disneyland in a couple weeks, Disney has obviously spared no expense on this brand new land. Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, Radiator Springs Racers, Test Track, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and more and more. They keep adding more high-quality rides, and that's fantastic. Good job, Disney. These are some fantastic high-budget rides. Experiences that you'll probably need a fast pass for because everybody else in the park knows that these rides are fantastic. But what about the path less traveled? What about the attractions that not a lot of people pay a second thought to? Underrated attractions. Ones that people might walk past without even realizing you could enter this building and experience something you can't experience anywhere else in the world. I'm looking at you, Sleeping Beauty Castle walkthrough. Disney goes out of their way to make every experience in their parks a special one. Yeah, sure, these might not be your blockbuster Test Tracks or Tron coasters, but these are, indeed, 5 underrated Disney attractions. Now let's start our list in Anaheim, California. Disneyland Park is home to probably more smaller, lesser known rides than most of the parks. Because it's the very first Disney theme park ever built, and because it was built in under a year, there are tons of nooks and crannies and entertainment and rides to be found in corners where lots of people would normally not think to look. Now I know it may sound like I'm being a little bit dramatic, but the Sleeping Beauty Castle walkthrough is passed by so many people. By the way, that's the first one on this list. The Sleeping Beauty Castle walkthrough, not necessarily an attraction you hop into a ride vehicle and move around in. Instead, it's a walkthrough exhibit of Sleeping Beauty's story going through the castle. And the use of lighting and Pepper's ghost in this walkthrough really gives you the feeling that you're standing inside of a real enchanted castle. I mean, I've never been inside a real enchanted castle before, but if I had, this is probably what it would feel like. Entering this doorway makes it feel like you stepped back in time to the classic 1950s Disneyland. As far as I am aware, there are no high-tech projection-faced animatronics in the walkthrough. The original version of the walkthrough opened in 1957, so that means it was around when Walt was around. And it remained largely the same until 2008 when Disney updated it with more modern technology. Most of the show scenes, though, remained unchanged and were just kind of updated for the newer generation. In January of this year, Disney closed down all of Sleeping Beauty Castle for a massive refurbishment. Disney was going to completely repaint the castle and give it a brand new color scheme, and maybe update the Sleeping Beauty walkthrough. Although it remains unclear what they're doing, if anything, inside the castle, it was closed down when the castle was under refurbishment. So it's very possible that in a few weeks we will see a brand new incarnation of the Sleeping Beauty Castle walkthrough. Either that or it's just gonna be completely the same and nothing will have changed. I think it's pretty safe to say that either way, I'll be happy. And now we move from Fantasyland to Frontierland for our next underrated, often passed by experience. Now this one's kind of a 2-in-1. There are 2 very different vessels that you can board, but they are pretty similar in the way they operate. The Mark Twain riverboat and the sailing ship Columbia around the rivers of America is one of my favorite things to do to pass the time at the park. I think it's safe to say that if you want a relaxing and peaceful trip around the rivers of America, board the Mark Twain, but if you want a more interactive and exciting trip, go ahead and board the Columbia. Not that either one is more or less entertaining than the other, but guys, come on, they shoot a cannon on the Columbia, and it makes me jump every time. The Mark Twain is quiet and peaceful, and it steams down the rivers of America without too much trouble. Meanwhile, the Columbia is staffed with a very excitable group of sailors who love to sing songs and fire cannons, again, into the forest, and it makes me jump, it's terrifying. But on the Columbia, you can also go below deck and see what life was like for a sailor in the 1700s. You can see how they slept, how they eat, how they, I don't know, batten down the hatches. And it gives you a little bit more of an appreciation for Pirates of the Caribbean because the ships from the attraction and the Columbia date from relatively around the same time period. So I feel like Pirates and the Columbia pretty much go hand in hand. If you haven't guessed by now, most of my underrated attractions are slower or shows, not fast roller coasters like Space Mountain or even the Matterhorn. But let's go ahead and stop talking about Disneyland. Now let's move to Florida and talk about something that only exists at Epcot, Living with the Land. This is yet another slow boat ride, but this time it's also kind of a dark ride. But the element that sets Living with the Land apart from other dark rides is the fact that you go through Disney's greenhouses. Before you reach Disney's amazing greenhouses though, you travel through some dark ride scenes. There's one of the American Prairie featuring buffalo animatronics that were to be used in the Western River expedition at the Magic Kingdom. That ride of course never happened. But the buffalo sit there to this day in Living with the Land as a reminder of what could have been. And if you enjoy what I think is the freshest food Disney has to offer, you can eat at the Garden Grill above Living with the Land and look into the ride while you're eating. I believe that Living with the Land is one of the last existing Disney classic dark rides, one that's not based on any single intellectual property, a ride that I think Walt himself would be proud of because not only does it entertain people, but it also educates them. It teaches us how we can, spoiler alert, I guess, live with the land instead of using harmful farming techniques and pesticides that could kill the land. It also serves as a really cool peek behind the curtain on how Disney operates with their environmentalism and how they recycle food and trash from all over the resort. It's a very interesting and eye-opening attraction that I really think everybody should ride at least once when they're in Epcot. And remember that this is an underrated rides video, so there's probably not going to be a very long line to ride. Okay, nice, coming along good. Now we can cross this off the list. What's next? Oh, come on, you guys all knew I was going to return to Disneyland at some point, and of course the Disneyland Railroad's got to make this list. This ride is basically the reason Disneyland exists. Walt built Disneyland just so he could have a giant train circling around near the studio. The original Disneyland was even supposed to be at the Disney Studios, but Walt's dreams soon outgrew the small studio lot. The railroad circles the park on a berm, which is a giant wall made out of dirt to keep the outside world outside and the inside world inside. Basically, it helps preserve the magic of Disneyland. Now, my favorite way to ride the Disneyland Railroad is to board at Main Street USA kind of halfway through the day when the crowds are at their highest. Grab yourself a snack, a mint julep, a Dole Whip, some popcorn, whatever you want, and get on the railroad, because you can have snacks on the railroad, just don't throw it over the side because that's really mean. And from here you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride for however long you want. There are stops at New Orleans Square, Toontown, Tomorrowland, and of course back at Main Street USA. The Disneyland Railroad is my favorite way to beat the midday crowds when everybody else and their mother is riding the mainstream attractions. My absolute favorite part of the Disneyland Railroad though has to be the dioramas. The Grand Canyon scene that you're seeing right now was added in 1958, and it was one of the first major additions to the Disneyland Railroad since it had opened. And don't even get me started on the Primeval World diorama that comes after the Grand Canyon, not only because it utilizes a show scene from one of Disney's forgotten World's Fair attractions, the Ford Magic Skyway, but also because it was added in late 1966, which makes it one of the very last additions to Disneyland that Walt Disney oversaw personally before he died. And it doesn't hurt that there's a giant T-Rex and a Stegosaurus doing battle next to an erupting volcano. Disney, that's so metal. So I guess if I had to say the reason I love the Disneyland Railroad is because you can enjoy your snacks and enjoy the nice Disneyland day while riding around the park and watching two dinosaurs try to tear each other apart. Okay, mark that one off. Okay, well, it's a little violent, wouldn't you say, Kermit?
No, I don't.
Well, that's fair enough. All right, let's get to the last one. Deep in the wilds of Adventureland at the Magic Kingdom, you can find a ride that used to exist at Disneyland but is now only found in Florida. Okay, not really a ride, more of a walkthrough, but this is a piece of Disney history, and it's one you don't have to wait in line for. The Swiss Family Treehouse is a remnant of the days where live-action Disney television shows were given their very own rides. Like the Davy Crockett Explorer canoes at Disneyland, Disney did not want to build an indoor dark ride for these TV shows. Instead, they wanted something more interactive, something that the guests could walk through or do at their own pace. Now, the treehouse isn't great for people who have a fear of heights, because you do go up really high, but it offers fantastic views of the parks, both Tarzans in California and the Swiss Family Treehouse in Florida. And all the while you're climbing up the treehouse, you get to experience different sets and rooms that tell the story of the Swiss Family Robinson. And being walk-through attractions with very intricate physical sets, these kind of served as a precursor to Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion. Because if you didn't know, both of those rides were originally meant to be walkthroughs, but in order to accommodate more guests, they changed it into an Omnimover and boat ride style system respectively. But because it is a walkthrough, that means there is never really a line and you're always moving through the scenes, and that's what I love about these tree houses. And that's why the Swiss Family Treehouse and Tarzan's Treehouse will always be among my favorite underappreciated Disney rides. But now let me ask you guys, what are your favorite underappreciated Disney rides? What do you like to ride that usually doesn't have a line or one that people wouldn't immediately rush to when the park opens? And my hope with this video is to show people that just because a ride's not a roller coaster or super flashy and new doesn't mean that it's not amazing. And believe it or not, in my opinion, some of these rides I discussed in this video kind of outclass the newer, fancier, faster ones. And now hopefully we will all know to slow down, smell the roses, and appreciate the underappreciated. And that's what I got so far. What do you think, Kermit? Kermit, are you using my app?
Maybe.
Well, what's the wait time of the Mark Twain right now?
85 minutes.
Okay, well, what about Space Mountain?
5.
Let's just go ride that.
Okay.
And that's the end of the video. I really gotta thank Kermit for sticking around and filming these last few videos with me. Do you guys like him? Should I kick him out? Should I keep him around? Who knows. I want to start off this end card by saying thank you to my Patreon supporters and all of those who bought merch at my Teespring store. It really helps me out. It helps me afford trips out to Anaheim to go to things like the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opening day. In a few weeks I will be there, and I'm very excited. And that's because of you guys, so thank you so much. Sorry this video took a little bit long to put out. I wanted to do something different. I had the whole video done and then I decided I didn't like it, so I scrapped it and did something a little different. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And not much to say in this end card. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who helped me go out to Anaheim and film these videos and do all these fun things. That's thanks to you guys, so I can't thank you enough. A new video is coming out next week based around Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I'll be talking about it a little bit before I go out there, and then right after that, the next video that I should upload should be the opening day Galaxy's Edge video. So stay tuned for that. If you have any suggestions on what you want me to do, go ahead and comment those down below. And I think that's it, everybody. So thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.